During this class, we are going to implement a new complex controller called buyersellercontroller. Basically, we are going to obtain all the sellers for a specific buyer. This is going to be a very interesting relationship because we have to go through every possible model that we have in our design to obtain the final results. Basically, we need to go through the transactions, then the product for every of those transactions, and finally the seller for every one of that products. An interesting detail here is that the sellers can be repeated, in fact. So we need to be sure that the list is with the unique sellers. So let's create our controller. Again, we only need the index method. We are extending from API controller. And let's register the root. After this, we just need to receive the bind model. So the sellers are going to be equals to buyer transactions. We just obtained the query builder for the transactions. Then use the eager loading to obtain the sellers. But we cannot do it in this way because there does not exist a relationship between transaction and seller directly. We have to do it through product. It means that Laravel needs to go to product and then to seller. So we need to use a nested relationship in the eager loading. And that can be done using the dot notation specifying to Laravel that we need the list of transactions with the product of every one of that transactions, and every one of those products is required with the seller inside. So we just need to get and return to see what we are getting right now. Let's fix this because the relationship is only seller between product and seller, and let's see what we have. We are going to obtain the sellers for this buyer, and you can see here the transaction within the product, and inside the product we have the seller, and the same every time. But again, we just need the list of sellers. So, as you may remember, we just need to use the plug method. We probably may want to use it like this. And let's see what happened. We have an empty collection. Well, this is basically because the seller is inside the product element. So Laravel cannot resolve correctly this seller index because it is not directly in the collection that we have here. So we need to go first to the product and then to the seller. Very simple, in fact, and very powerful. So if we try again, voila, we have it right now. But we have a detail. We can have repeated sellers. So we need to use the unique method from the collections. And we are going to specify that a seller is different from other depending on the ID. The problem now here is that if there exists a repeated seller, the unique method is going to remove this from the collection, but there is going to exist an empty space. So we are going to have different sellers, and when it is a repeated one, we are going to have an empty object. And that is not a very good idea, of course. So for that, we need Laravel through the values method, recreate the index of the collection. And in that way, we are going to obtain all the lists without repeated elements and without empty ones. Of course, if we try to check again, we are obtaining just the same result as expected. So we are done now. See you in the next class.